Hey guys, what's going on? Quick look at a Purpleheart Armoury competition cutter sword here. Real fast. This isn't an in-depth review. I'm simply giving you a few impressions. I just got this yesterday, swung it around, played around with it. Haven't cut anything with it yet. Plan to do that here soon, but I wanted to give some information because there's not a ton of reviews on this particular sword, and it's kind of interesting in a lot of ways. So Purpleheart Armoury is the company that commissioned this sword. They do a lot of training swords, blunt swords, wooden swords, things like that. This is one of their very few cutting swords that they produce. They commissioned with a maker out of Hungary, Viktor, and I cannot pronounce his last name. Information will be down below along with all of the specs on this sword. This retails for $350. It comes in two types, and really it's just the pommel. So this has the pear-shaped pommel. They also have a disc pommel version. Right now this is the only one that is in stock. This is the third version of this particular sword, so it's kind of cool because they started commissioning this sword a while ago, and they've gone through different iterations based on feedback and reviews and things like that. So it's kind of cool to see that. In this latest version, they shaved off some weight, which is one of the downsides to this sword. It is on the heavy side. So this is a two-handed sword. It's meant for cutting. You can see right there, it ships out of Hungary blunt, and then it is sharpened by, if you want, it is sharpened by Purpleheart Armoury. So, first impressions, this thing is built like a tank. It is extremely solid. This particular maker is kind of known for functional first. So he does very strong designs. It's very historically accurate in terms of how it's constructed, not necessarily the aesthetics, the shapes, the handles, things like that, but in terms of the manufacturing process, it is very historically accurate, meaning that the primary focus, you can see the peen right there, which I think looks really cool. You can see the hammer mark on the actual peen. Some people like theirs a little cleaner. Ground down. I actually prefer it like this. So it's very representative of the fit and finish that you would get in a real time period sword. But that being said, the fit and finish is not super refined. The ridge line is a little off-centered. However, it does reach center on the tip. But you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, it's a little wider on this side than this side. When you flip it over, you can see it's kind of the opposite on this side. Kind of the ridge line meanders a little bit, especially down towards the crossguard. It's got some little pivot marks, things like that. The crossguard itself has some rough grinding on it. It's got a lot of gaps, particularly on this side right there. He does put some epoxy in there, but it's kind of spotty. Like there'll be a blob of epoxy here, and then nothing in the middle. And then like on this side, there's some epoxy over here, but nothing over here. The handle is leather wrapped. One thing I want to point out is it does have this seam right here. However, it has a ridge going through the handle that the seam sits in. So even though there's a seam, it's more or less flush. I mean, obviously you can still feel it, but it's not completely proud. So it is inset inside here. And I really like that. And one thing I noticed in handling this that's kind of cool is you can feel that seam, and it gives you a little bit of a index on which edge is out. And one of the benefits to a double-edged sword like this, at least historically when you're in a battle, is you can use one edge, and when it gets too damaged, flip it around and use this as your primary edge. And at least barehanded, this does give you kind of a nice index in terms of which edge is forward, which edge is back. I'm sure in gloves it's not as pronounced, but at least there, barehanded it is. Nice leather wrapping. It's done well. There's no cord wrapping underneath it, so it is smooth. So it doesn't have quite the bite to it that swords with a cord wrap would have. It does have a really nice oval shape. It feels really good in the hands. In fact, this sword in general just feels really good to swing. It is on the heavy side though. So for me, this is a good training sword. This is something good for somebody just starting out. wanting to do some cutting. They don't want to use a very expensive sword. They're going to be sharpening this thing. If it gets some nicks, not that big of a deal. It's a little heavier, which can assist in kind of building some of these smaller muscles in swinging a sword around. Because if you've ever swung a sword around, it doesn't matter if you lift weights, you're going to feel muscles you didn't know you had, particularly in the forearms, things like that. So this is a good trainer. However, I don't know if I'd consider this a competition cutter. I don't know if you'd ever want to take this to a competition unless this is all you had, but maybe I'm wrong there. I'm not a competition cutter, so I wouldn't know. But to me, this seems more like a kind of a good trainer to use. Now, it doesn't come with a scabbard. It would be nice if it did, even a very plain scabbard. No scabbard. They did ship it in a rifle case, which is nice. These are nice to have, wrapped in plastic, so no frills. But it's cool because it comes from an actual maker, right? So the maker of this makes custom swords. He's known for doing kind of functional first, like I said before. The aesthetics, the finish isn't quite as high as some other swords, but they're extremely well made, extremely robust. They're not going to break on you. And he refines it. So even though it's heavy, it feels really good. It's balanced really well. And like I said, the handle is one of the best I've felt in terms of shape. At least in my hands, it has the perfect shape. Perfect amount of width, but it's slim, oval shaped, really, really nice. All the stats will be down below if you want to look that up. Definitely worth checking out if this is something you're interested in. Not really a show piece or a collector piece per se. It's built to be used. It's built to be sharpened. It's a sword that you don't mind kind of using and putting some nicks in. Oh, so even though it's got some minor, some fluctuations on the ridge line, things like that, the blade is absolutely straight. There's no major waves in the blade. So like I said, it really is just, the only thing it's lacking is kind of the finished refinement. All the core basics of a sword are done very, very well. So you kind of just save that extra expense. Obviously you could run this through more refinement and then add $200, $300, $400 to the price tag. But for this particular sword, it's meant to be used. Functionality first, and not particularly meant to be blown away by the way it looks. The overall finish is pretty decent, though. I was actually surprised. Like, I knew it was kind of lacking on some of the super finishing, but overall it's pretty good. The pommel's done nicely. You got a little bit of glue coming out, but once again, this handle is not going anywhere. This wrap is not going anywhere. It is done really, really well. So, all right, guys, quick look. Purpleheart Armoury competition cutter version 3 coming out of Hungary. Pretty cool stuff. All right, guys, see you later.